Joe Nardoni, this has to be a very busy and conflicting and troublesome time for the airport industry and for tourism in general. Tell me right now where we stand when it comes to your job and what's going on in Central Ohio.
Well, good afternoon, Colleen, or good morning. It's so good to see you. I will tell you that we are in very good shape at Columbus Airports. We have a great infrastructure here of staff and political leaders and business leaders, and we feel as confident as we ever have about running an airport and an airport system. Um, right now, of course, we're down to about one third of our passengers, but we're still being successful. We're keeping a very clean airport. We are running a great Rickenbacker. It's been a really important part of our entire airport system because we've gotten a lot of personal protective equipment down there, and we continue to get cargo on a regular basis. Our business, while being slow overall, is still vibrant.
I'm going to take you back to the beginning of all of this. We all have COVID on the mind. You and I are not in person today because of what's going on with this pandemic. When it first started and you realized how it was going to hit airports and travel, what was your immediate game plan, or were you all just stunned at what you were suddenly dealing with?
So, what I would say, that's a great question, Colleen. Thank you. I arrived here in January of 2018, and we've been planning for doing some really great things since I arrived. And we have been complimented for being ahead of this virus. Trust me, we weren't, although we were ahead of the overall management of the organization. So it really was a very difficult time, but we made very quick decisions. We sent people home. Our philosophy was protect our employees first. Our mantra was take care of our employees' health, and the business will follow. So, I mean, we've gone back and we've done some interactive discussions among our leadership team, and we've gone back and said, what could we have done differently? And to be honest with you, we feel very confident that we made really good decisions. That being said, there were a lot of decisions, and we were just very aggressive, and we talked about them, and we thought them through, and it was a very iterative process, but very confident in what we did. And again, I said this earlier, we had great support from the community. Brian Ross in Experience Columbus led us to the GBAC Star accreditation. We were one of the first airports in the country to get that, to make sure our passengers and our employees and others feel safe. The Columbus Partnership, we were the first airport to produce a safe work playbook. We did it very early in the pandemic. At one point, 400 other airports had downloaded our product. That actual safe work handbook was an iteration of something that came from the Columbus Partnership. We have been in constant contact with Mayor Ginther and our Franklin County commissioners. Our congressional delegation, Congresswoman Beatty, Congressman Stivers, Congressman Balderson, Senator Portman, and Senator Sherrod Brown have all been helpful to us as it relates to stimulus. What a great place Columbus is. What great support we've received, and to know that we're supported. Our board of directors was very active and very involved, and we have a board here of the best and brightest in Columbus. So it's a fantastic place to be. Decisions were made quickly, support was given at all levels, and we hope that we're as supportive to others as they are to us.
How did you calm the fears of your employees? Because the reality is, in that airport, and in both airports, and all of the airport systems, people are coming from all over the country, all over the world, and you don't know where they've been, what they've been exposed to, and how careful they have been. So let's talk on a granular level. How did you deal with your workers and the fears that they might have, especially in the early days of this pandemic, when we were all either in lockdown or frightened about travel?
So that's a really important question to the success of what we've had since March of this year. We were extremely communicative. We had daily calls for the first 3 or 4 months of the pandemic with our management and many of our team members. We had an emergency preparedness team that converted a plan that we had, and we were active The day the first case was announced in the US, we were already in action. So it really was about communication. Our talent level is very high at this airport. I'm very blessed to have come into a situation where we have people that really know what they're doing. And and the bottom line, Colleen, is communication. We communicated with pulse surveys. We communicated with emails from me. We communicated with daily communications from our communications team. It was every, everything we've ever done was thrown out the window in light of trying to communicate with our staff, and they responded very well. I mean, remember, as you said, we had to continue cleaning the terminals. We had to keep the runways open. We had people here, our essential staff. We have police officers and ARF, which is firefighting. They had to be here under any circumstances. We could not close this airport down or any of our three airports, and we did not. And our people responded magnificently. They knew that we were telling them the truth, and we are so grateful that they accepted the information we were providing to them, and they responded very well.
One thing you can't control is the airlines. You've got these major corporations that were each dealing with this in very different ways. Now, I have flown Southwest since the pandemic began. They have that open seat in the middle, and they're very adamant that you are going to be wearing a mask, but they're all setting their own policies. Did you feel like you had to try to intervene in what they were doing, or did you have confidence that they were each going to come up with a plan that you could accept?
So, Colleen, the airlines obviously are very important. Without the airlines, you don't need an airport. We were communicating on a daily basis with all of our partners, first and foremost the airlines, but also TSA. We had daily interactions with TSA. We shared information. As it relates to intervening with the airlines, they are very large multinational corporations who know what they want and how they want to run their outfits. They all had a little different perspective on it, but all very professional and very thoughtful. We all know, whether we're at the airport, whether we're TSA, whether we're the airlines, that we have to satisfy the passengers. And it's a psychological issue. People are very concerned about flying. It's been proven, or at least there's been some studies that have said that flying is very safe. But we do have a psychological issue. People are still very nervous about flying. Although I was mentioning earlier today, we have had 15 cases or so of COVID-19 here at the airport. Not one was contracted here at the airport. It's contracted by a friend, a family member. It's unfortunate, and thankfully we haven't had anybody who's gotten really sick, but we have not had any person-to-person contact in our employees that we know of.
So no transmission at the airport, just people who have brought it from home, essentially.
Correct.
But you mentioned public confidence, and going forward, that's something that you're going to have to rebuild. There are a lot of people. I had a conversation with one of my coworkers yesterday who said, "Oh, I don't know when I will ever have confidence to fly again. You're packed into those planes and the air is recirculating." But so how do you get beyond that thought process, the fact that people are concerned about being safe in an industry that so many of us had come to rely on for business, for pleasure, for family? How do you rebuild public trust?
So you start with doing a lot of the things that we did early on. We have always kept a very clean airport, and if you fly in and out of here, a compliment to our team. But we've done even better. We learned to do more things. You'll see people in what I would describe as white moon suits, spraying down seats. While we believe we were always good, we think that this pandemic has gotten us better. That being said, I'm not sure how we get past the psychological problem except time. You heard the news today or yesterday on the possible vaccine. Um, there's a lot of ground to make up. Remember, 2019 was the busiest year we've ever had in Columbus airports. We had 8.6 million passengers go through this airport. Now we're 750 or 800,000 a day leaving. Now we're excuse me, seven a month. Um, Now we're at a couple 100,000. So it's a tough deal, but we think that we need to provide the best and safest experience for people. There's been, as I said, several studies that have said it's safe to fly, but we're not there yet. People are still not flying.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned people like coming into our airport. It is very clean. It always seems to me to be a pristine place to fly in and out of. And the other thing that I've noticed, as you know, just being the generic traveler who might be going to different airports, it's easy to navigate. Some of that is probably because it's not a giant airport with multiple buildings that you have to take a tram to, but I always feel like when I get back to the Columbus airport, oh, I'm home. This is so, it's simple. It's laid out in a way that it's easy to figure out. But it's also growing. You said you had your busiest year in 2019. If it wasn't for COVID, we would probably be very busy still. So let's talk about, how do you grow and keep this airport accessible and friendly and easy to get around?
So it starts with our staff, and we have some things that are both pluses and minuses in Columbus Airport, particularly CMH. We have three separate checkpoints, which is really good if you're trying to get to your gate quickly. It's not great if you want to have a lot of concessions sales, because if you have one or two checkpoints and everyone has to go by one store, you get a lot more business. So we're divided up. That has served us well during COVID. I would say this is generally a pre 9/11 airport. So with the three concourses, it's been harder for TSA to manage. They've had to do roving checkpoints at times. Um, but this airport, it's one of the things that separates us from other airports. Many airports, we have our own custodial team. Those folks actually work for the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, and they are very serious about delivering the right product. I'm not suggesting that contractors aren't, I'm just suggesting they are our employees, and that's a difference maker. Many airports don't have that. This airport is at its critical point. And one of the things you may or may not know, I came from Detroit Metro Airport, which is a much larger airport. We're very interested in trying to find a way to build a new terminal for Columbus. Columbus is a terrific city that deserves a new terminal. This terminal is old. That being said, we need money, and COVID certainly has set us back. But we try to deliver the best passenger experience we can for each and every passenger that comes to this airport. Again, some things benefit us. Having three concourses is good and bad, but it works for us right now. And we continue to get great passenger scores. Our board has made it a priority. We want to make sure the passengers are having a good experience. And we have spent a lot of time on that. And it's the basics, okay? It's a good experience on a shuttle. It's a clean restroom. It's basically, when we got here, we said, we're starting, I'll use an Ohio State metaphor, we're going to block and tackle. Okay, we want to be as good as the Ohio State Buckeyes at blocking and tackling. We want to do the basics very well, and I think we're succeeding at that.
I think you are too. I meant that sincerely. It's a comfortable airport to go through. COVID obviously has changed everything, but you mentioned you want a new terminal, and that is an older building. There's been a lot of construction rehab though over the past few years. So what do you envision if somebody says to you, okay, we've got an open checkbook, here, what do you need? And here you go. Here's the money for it. What do you envision that this airport will look like 10 years from now, let's say?
So 10 years from now, I certainly envision a brand new airport. As you know, if you've been here, you see what's going on with our consolidated rental car facility. That's about a $125 million project that is well underway, nearing completion. We hope to have a terminal and a new parking deck attached to that. But I think this city deserves a very nice architectural gem of an airport terminal. We think we can do it. We've been looking at numbers since I got here. We've brought in different staff people. We have a new chief innovation officer, Jody Bear, who many people in the city are familiar with. Tom McCarthy is a gentleman that I worked with at Detroit Metro. He's been involved with building three different terminals. So we're getting prepared to do these things. We have brought in a terrific staff, and if I had my wish and I could just wave my magic wand, I would have the best medium hub airport in the country. And Columbus deserves that. And I am confident that we can deliver that, provided we can get the airlines on board, because ultimately airports are paid for by airlines. And we have great partnerships with them. In fact, I was with one of the airlines today at lunch before we spoke. We are just, it's a cooperative effort. We need to keep their costs down. One of the things that we did right when I got here was started cutting costs. We are far fewer employees than we were when I got here. The goal was to try and find a way to build a terminal. So others have looked at us and said, man, you were prepared for this pandemic. I can't take credit for that. We were preparing for the eventuality of building a terminal. So we were saving money, and we had a very successful 2019, and then the bottom fell out. But this a terminal, as long as you have we have great construction firms in this community. We have great engineering firms. There's a lot of people that I could see participating in coming up with a beautiful terminal for the future. If you've traveled in and out of Indianapolis, it generally, I have not, but it always gets high marks. We moved up this year on JD Power. We've continued to move up with our passenger scores on what they call ASQ. But the terminals and airports that get the best scores, frankly, are the new terminals and the new airports.
Well, Columbus really is. Everybody still says, "Oh, well, you used to be a cow town. Now you're this thriving metropolis." But there are some things that haven't caught up. And I do think you're right. I think the airport is one of them. But now we don't have someone who's going to wave a magic wand. So let's talk about where that money does come from. I mean, who is it? State partnership, federal partnership? Is it private investments? How much of it is the airlines themselves? And what kind of a price tag are we talking about?
So it's a lot of those things. So you know a lot about the business, it sounds like. Ultimately, it's about the airlines, but I can tell you we've gotten great support even during this pandemic. I mentioned the Congress people and the U.S. senators that have helped us. The money comes from the airlines, but it comes from a bunch of different pots. It's good decision making. It's saving money when you can. It's having a strategic plan. In fact, we just brought a new chief financial officer in from the Detroit Zoo, of all places. I did not know him being from Detroit, but he's a very talented, strategic mind. He served as a CFO at a couple of other organizations. Again, trying to bolster our team to get the best talent we can get in here to come up with the right decisions to cobble together the money to build this terminal. We were on our way, and COVID, of course, has cut us off at the knees, but provided this community, and this is a V-shaped curve, I can tell, or V-shaped recovery, this community has supported us at all levels. I hear from community leaders on a regular basis. Everybody wants what's best for this airport and this city and this mid-Ohio region. It's extraordinary, but it's not easy. So the terminal's been talked about for a long time, and with all due respect, it's a hard thing to do to get the financial resources in place. The feds have helped us. The FAA has helped us run. I mean, there are all kinds of pieces to this puzzle, but it really is a very comprehensive puzzle that needs a whole bunch of pieces to fit together.
And what is the price tag? What do you think this is going to cost?
I didn't answer that question. Today, in today's dollars, we're at about a $1.5 billion.
Yeah, I knew it was an awful lot of money to try to come together. And especially, we keep going back to it, but this pandemic has changed everything for everyone. If there is a recovery next year, what's that going to look like for the airport? I mean, what are you looking for signs that maybe a little life is being breathed back into what you do?
So we're looking at our budget next year is focused on about 55% of our 2019 levels. We all hope it's more. Right now, we're running about 1/3, down in the 30% of our 2019 levels. We're hoping for a great Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we also want to be respectful. We understand that people are nervous about flying. So I would say that if we can get back to 50 or 60% in 2021 and 70, 80, 90% in 2022, I'm confident in the American public. I'm confident in the vaccine. I'm confident in this city and people's commitment to travel. I think people want to get back to normal. So what my hope is, and don't hold me to this, my hope is to have a terminal built here in the next 5 years, and we can't do that without the right number of passengers. What I can tell you is we have costs at the existing terminal, and as it continues to cost money, you start looking at what the tipping point is. So if it costs 600 or 800 million to keep an old terminal open and it costs 1.5 billion to build a new terminal, it starts making more sense. So we're looking at all those things. Um, but it's very dynamic. When I got here, they said, look, we're going to save $10 million a year for a new terminal. I said, it's not enough. If you build $1 billion, just use the number billion, a 3% construction increase on an annual basis is 30 million. You can't keep up. So we're looking at all those different dynamics, trying to find a way to make it happen. Of course, right now it's all hands on deck to make sure we can do what needs to be done, but the terminal never leaves our minds, or the back of our minds.
A lot of people, a lot of travelers will be happy to hear that. You know what? One of the things that I've always wondered is Columbus and Central Ohio really markets itself as this wonderful logistical, centerpiece, and we are the heart of the country. So we know that transportation wise in the trucking industry, Columbus is seen as being so close to all these other metro areas around the nation, that we're within a so many hours drive to all these other centers. I'm surprised that Columbus hasn't been more of a hub for more airlines, that they don't see the logistical advantage of having hubs here in Central Ohio, simply because of how close we are to New York and Chicago and Nashville and Florida, for that matter. Why is it, do you think, that we aren't more of a hub for the major airlines?
So I want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. You're talking a little bit about logistics, and I do think that we are a logistics hub. But airlines pick their hubs based on the way they run their business. Cities don't pick hubs. While we'd love to be a hub here, it's all about how the airline system works for them, how their networks work. And that's why you have Chicago, and you have Detroit, and you have Minneapolis, and you have Atlanta, and you have Salt Lake City, and you have LA, and you have New York. Those things work for their distribution of their passengers. Um, Columbus is what they call an origination and destination airport. You get on an airplane here and you go someplace else. But it's a very vibrant airport. We have regular flights to all the hubs, but hubs are selected by airlines for their business, not by the city or the community or the airport. If they were, we'd be in line to have one. But we continue just working on trying to grow our air service. Right now, we're trying to get back to point zero. But Columbus is a very coveted community. We have a great business community. We have the universities. We have a lot of traffic right now. Most airports, let me say that, almost all airports are surviving on leisure travel right now. Business travel has been the slowest to come back. So some of the airlines that are really business focused are struggling. I think it will all come back. But right now, South Florida, for instance, I talked to a CEO in South Florida, and they're at 75 or 80% of where they were in 2019. So there's some places that have bounced back, but it truly is leisure travel right now. We need to get the business people traveling.
One of the things that COVID has shown businesses is that people can, first of all, be productive from home, that people can meet effectively, like you and I are meeting right now over Zoom, that you don't necessarily have to be in the same room to have success in the business world. And I've talked to people who believe that this is going to, number one, hurt commercial real estate. That some of the companies may downsize because they realize that a lot of their staff can be just as productive from their houses, where they don't need as much office space as they've had. And I imagine when businesses realize that people can effectively communicate online like this, they might not see as much need for business travel. Is that something you're concerned about, or something you are trying to market against?
So as a business person whose livelihood is involved with business and leisure travel, of course we're concerned about it. I am old school, and what I'm hearing from a lot of folks in the community is when the dam breaks, everyone will be generally back to business travel. I agree with you. I think you can do some things effectively, but there's nothing like being in person. I wish that I was sitting in a studio with you, Colleen. But it's not the time. I think that people really, we're a very resilient crowd. And I think travelers are very resilient. People want to travel. I've talked to some business people who have said, can I just come visit you and talk to you? As I said, I had one today, one of the airlines, who they're really not traveling. There's a lot of pent up demand. People want to get out. It's what I've heard from the business community is they're waiting for their competitors to start traveling. So when somebody, an architect or an engineer or a business person, can get in front of somebody and sell something, they feel like they're going to have to respond. And let's face it, we can say all that we want. I think again, we're resilient. We've adjusted, but when it comes to selling or moving your product, you have to be in front of somebody. And I'm confident that when people feel comfortable, that we will return.
The other thing, these airlines that are realizing how much, ridership is down are offering some unbelievable deals. My daughter, for instance, lives in Nashville, and I've been able to go on Southwest for $49 a flight, almost unheard of. How long do you think those kinds of incentive packages for not just for business people, but for travelers like me, family travelers? How long do you think we can expect to be able to take advantage of those kinds of fares?
So Nashville is a great city, and I get asked all the time what I think about airfares. I can assure you that I know nothing about airfares. Okay, so we follow it closely and we take the complaints, but the airlines have their own ways of setting airfares, and different airports. For instance, Detroit was a hub, so Delta could really control the ticket pricing. I think that it's way more sophisticated than my brain has the ability to ponder, but I can tell you that I expect that airlines will be competitive until we get out of this situation where we only have 35 or 40% of the folks traveling. They're being very creative, and let me tell you, the airlines have very, very talented, smart people running their operations, very sophisticated business and very sophisticated business practices. For those who like low rates, take them now, because I think that they will they'll be here for a while. But I think when we get back to 2019 levels, which I'm hoping is sooner rather than later, I don't think all of those good fares will be around.
I haven't asked you about Rickenbacker, the other airports that are, under your purview. Is that also suffering the COVID effects? Because we were thinking of Rickenbacker as being, as you mentioned, the word logistics. It really was making its mark, wasn't it, before COVID?
So it still is, and that's a compliment to the folks that were here long before I was here. We have a great team of folks. We work down there around the clock. I mean, we had a flight last week from the Philippines. We've just signed up Korean Air. Our people down there are really good at what they do. Rickenbacker is down, but down slightly. So we're hoping that this vaccine will get distributed quickly and we'll be ready. And we need to make sure that we have the appropriate, whichever vaccine it is, we have the appropriate cold storage down at Rickenbacker. We're working, honestly, even before the vaccine, we were working on doing something to provide some cool cold storage for flowers and those kinds of things, medications. So Rickenbacker is really holding its own. It's been a shining star for us. It's actually made a little money during COVID. But it's because our people are so sophisticated. And every time we get a new airline down there, typically we have a certain number of scheduled flights, cargo flights, and then we get some ad hoc flights. It's now mostly ad hoc flights and very few scheduled. But every time we get one of those ad hoc flights, it gives our people the opportunity to earn business. And let me tell you, they are earning business. They are unloading those aircraft quickly. We are one of the only airports, I think the only airport that we know of, that are using converted, that some of the airlines are using converted passenger aircraft to fly in cargo. So our people have come up with new conveyor belts. They're doing all kinds of really exciting, innovative things down there to make sure Rickenbacker is holding its own.
For not everyone understands what goes on down at Rickenbacker. It's kind of an anomaly when you think of an airport that what's operating. So just explain, first of all, what ad hoc flights are, and on a daily basis, the kind of work that gets done at Rickenbacker.
So that's a great question, and it's a little complicated. So I'll try and tell this story. We have freight forwarders down there who are moving product that the product is being brought in by these international carriers. International carriers are our greatest growth. So whether it be computers, whether it be flowers, whether it be whatever it is, we are. You mentioned a hub. My brain was going back to. We are a hub for retail. So thank you to L Brands and Express and some of those local companies that have been so focused on growing this area for many years and their commitment to the economic development of this community. we don't always know what's being unloaded. Sometimes they don't want to tell you, but it gets unloaded, it goes to freight forwarders, and the product goes out to market. During COVID, for instance, I got a call from a buddy of mine being from Detroit saying, hey, we want to move some engines through Rickenbacker. So when I say ad hoc, that means it's not regularly scheduled. It's not bringing dresses once a week, or it's not bringing iPads once a week or whatever. It's just, hey, I want to move some motors. I got to get some motors to Kentucky, or I've got to get some motors to wherever I'm taking them to. Can you help us? So it's more basic one-offs. In the past, our people had built a really good structure where they had a certain number of flights that were being delivered on a weekly basis and delivering similar types of products, going to the freight forwarders and being moved out. One of the problems we have, and it's continuing to get a little better, is product going out. So you really need, when you bring in product, you want to fill that aircraft to go back to wherever it's come from with product. So there's a little bit of magic to that, but instead of having regularly scheduled products bringing dresses or computers once a week, we now have more. I'm going to be there in 2 days. I have X amount of computers. Can you be there and unload them? And our people unload them. So we actually have, it's very unusual, happened before I got here, a fixed base operator down there at Rickenbacker. Our people actually do the work. It's not consultants. It's not, or contractors, I should say. Our people are the ones that are earning the business. So this is a very unique outfit, this Columbus Airport. And because of the way it's structured, we are so fortunate. This is something that Columbus Airports is one of the most revered airports in the nation because it's such a great structure for an airport. The board is so professional. The political leaders are so professional. We actually get to run this outfit without political influence or people trying to tell us what to do. They support us. It's phenomenal.
Well, you mentioned you like to push this product out as well as the product coming in. We are not exactly a manufacturing hub here. L Brands certainly were, retail, but it's not like we are making widgets in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm always surprised at how busy Rickenbacker is. It's a very busy airport, isn't it?
It's a very busy airport. It's a very busy airport. And I would say that, as I said, I think we're down about 5% for the year, down 65% at CMH, to give you a perspective. So they've really held their own. I mean, we do all kinds of things. One day you may be down there and you'll see hogs getting shipped out, or fancy cars, or there's just all kinds of things that go through there. And I know I'm really big on support, but we have great support from customs, our port director. I mean, everybody here in this city works together. There's no egos. Everybody is trying to help. And we work with USDA. We have an approved livestock holding pen down there, so you could go down there and as somebody said, you lose your new car smell very quickly in our little livestock area. But it's all good.
You mentioned that you came from Detroit. I want to ask you a few personal questions, if I
Please.
can. People will look at you and say, this guy really is effective and he's very happy to be here in Central Ohio. But I wonder why he left that big city to come to Columbus. Was this a difficult decision for you? What in your background made you decide the time for you now is Columbus?
Well, that's a terrific question. It's a really simple answer. Detroit, bigger does not always mean better. It was a complete pleasure to run Detroit Metropolitan Airport. It is this is a much more stable environment for an airport executive. As I mentioned, the political leaders support the airport director here. When I left Detroit, they had some 6 or 7 CEOs in this 10 or 12 years before I departed. But the reason that I wanted to be in Columbus isn't about that, because I think I could have stayed in Detroit and been very successful. We were having a successful experience up there. It's because the people in this community, it starts with my board of directors. When we talked about coming here, they had a vision and they had a commitment to doing the right thing. And I've been asked the question almost every day for the last 3 years, Colleen, why would you leave Detroit? Well, I can tell you, Columbus is a better place to be if you want to be an airport director or executive. Um, it's There's a magic to this city. There's a magic to this Mid Ohio region, and the staff is terrific. And as I said, this is a very well thought of airport system. Do I miss the large hub? Well, some days I do. It's a very active airport, and there are other airports that you can work at that are just as active as Detroit, but I can tell you there's no place that I want to be other than Columbus. I love working here.
Let's talk about your management style. Do you find yourself to be a good delegator, or are you one of the people who has to have his hand on everything? What do you consider to be your style of communicating and leading in the position that you're in right now?
So let's start with really the basic things about human dignity. You want to respect your staff. I am very much an empowering leader. We are also performance driven. So there are some things that it's not for everyone. Okay. We want to empower people. We want people. Remember when I first got here, I'm a little different. Everybody's a little different. It doesn't mean it's good or bad, but I'm a very aggressive, involved. I spent a lot of time in the private sector. We know what it takes to be successful, but I have tremendous executives. And generally, my job is to guide them, to lead them, not to direct them. So I want to use their experience. They're the subject matter experts, and that goes all the way through the food chain. It's not just the executives, it's at every level. We're trying to build a culture where people listen to the people who know best how to deliver the results. So it's been very successful for me in my career. It was a little bit of a change of pace when I got here. But everyone's different, and it's not for everyone. But when I sat down with my executives when I got here and said, I want you to make the decisions, they looked at me like I had two heads. So, it was just a change. So we are, honestly, there's been quite a bit of change here. Not all of the executives that were here when I got here are still here, but we have a very strong team, and we want everybody to be successful.
Are they not here by your choice or by their choice?
One of the number two guy here when I arrived is now the CEO of Grand Rapids Airport. Terrific guy. His name is Tori Richardson. Many people in the community know him. Some evolved out. I think that fits are important. So we're going to drive towards a result that we're going to get. And people will say to me now, they'll say, I didn't understand 2 years ago why you did this or why you were doing that. We've been very fortunate to get the results that we've gotten, but it's really the execution of the people at different levels. It's not me. All I do is set the course and try to get people to understand that they really are the subject matter experts.
At your level, you being at the top, are you involved in performance reviews? Are you hands-on when it comes to, you said you like to guide, you like to lead through example. Are you hands-on when it comes to talking to people about where you want them to be a year from now?
Absolutely. So my job, Colleen, that's a great question. My job is, and I will tell you, I've been very fortunate in my career. People have been very good to me, and again, here in Columbus, people have been very good to me. My job is to make everybody who works with me's life better. So it's to grow them, to help them learn. It's to take when Mr. Richardson left for Grand Rapids, when I became the CEO, I said, I have two jobs. I need to make you the best airport CEO that you can be. Take what you learned before, take what I have, but you need to do better. So I want everybody here to be better than me. And there are some that are. Well, let me say most of them are. But the point is, my job is to continue developing people. I am where I want to be and where I need to be, but I won't be here forever. And everybody that you can contribute to their success is really what this is about, right? I just had a conversation with one of our leaders the other day. No one's going to remember that we had a huge year in 2019. No one's going to remember this decision or that decision. They're going to remember how we treat people and how we grow our employees and how we treat them with respect. And that's really what careers are about. How can you make other folks' lives better?
I'm curious, you are essentially a newcomer to Central Ohio. You've been here for a few years now, but what was your vision of what you thought the city would be like compared to what it is like now that you've been living here for a year or two?
So a couple of things on that. This city has exceeded my wildest expectations for cooperation, collaboration, talent, universities. It's just a fantastic place. I will say that I tend to be a little more aggressive than others because I spent a lot of time in the private sector and I have a private sector mentality. So when you say, are you hands on? I went downstairs to see our financial people the first month that our financials were being produced, and I said, where are financials? And I said, I'm sure the other leaders have been down here. And they said, we've seen you more in the last 3 days than we saw this person or that person or whatever. So I do want to know what's going on, but I don't want to interfere with the process. I think Columbus is just a wonderful city, and the answer is everybody brings different skill sets. So some airport folks have been worked in the federal government or have been pilots or whatever. I am a business guy, so I think that our board was really interested in that directional stuff when I arrived, and they've been very kind to me and very supportive, and the city overall has been amazing. You could not ask for more.
What are the leadership changes you had to make when you went from the private sector to being in more of this, a public operation like you're in right now?
So that's a really good question. This airport has a lot of flexibility because it's a port authority and it has a lot of ability to be aggressive. So, but it is different. So I've worked so my career is probably half public, half private. So I have that unique ability to be able to toggle between working in the public sector and the private sector. So there's some things that you have to do differently when you're in the public sector. We have a great general counsel who worked me through some things. I mean, honestly, I think I pretty much knew it, but it is it's different, right? To be aggressive when people think of bureaucracies when they think of government, but we are a very very nimble business. So pluses and minuses to both. But as long as you can get people thinking and following and doing what you need them to do, which we've been very successful at here, and as has our team. So.
Well, you know who else is very successful? Katie Smith, who has been listening in on this conversation today. She is the editor of CEO Magazine, and we like to invite her in to ask a surprise question to the CEOs whose brains we're picking. So, Katie, go ahead. You have a
Hi,
question?
Katie.
Hi, thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Joe. Joe, you're talking about a new airport terminal and your dreams for that, and that sounds fabulous to me, even though I love our current terminal. What is the most exciting feature that the new terminal would have that, if you had your wishes granted?
So what if you let me wave my magic wand? I think it would be an architectural gem. We'd want some high ceilings and some beautiful views of both the airfield and other spaces. So it's someplace. So we need a beautiful terminal here. There'd be some glass, but it's pretty early. We haven't talked to an architect about this, but truly something that reflects the beauty and the vibrancy and the dynamic community that Columbus is. So I think that it would have to be something that was very architecturally pleasing, but also we have to worry about budget. So we have to figure all of those things out and spend appropriately to keep the airline's costs down, but make as attractive a facility as possible.
I'm
And just
curious.
a quick follow-up.
Oh, go ahead,
You
Katie.
you gave us a $5 billion potential price tag for that project. Where would you get the money for that? Where are the places? Who pays for that?
So you pay for it when you park at the airport. Uh, Everybody pays for it, but generally it's an agreement between the airlines and the airport. So all kinds of airport finance is complicated, but it's simple. It's all of the money that goes into an airport and it's thrown in a pot and it's stirred up, and then you come up with your money. We have a little different structure than other airports, so we do have the ability to have a bottom line and make some money, and we've done that. We did that in 2019. That being said, it is going to be tough. I mean, you have to get the airlines on board. So it's really about the airport and the airlines, and it's about going out and taking debt, and it's about making good decisions on the facility, and it's about trying to find a way to build the right facility that provides the best experience for your passengers, but also lends some real beauty to the landscape, because everybody wants a beautiful airport.
All right. Thank you, Katie. She said 5 billion. I thought you said the price tag would be 1.5 billion.
I wasn't. She's too smart for me to correct, but right now we're at about 1 billion.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
my apologies.
That's okay. I
If
didn't
you
want to
have
scare people. I didn't want to
Kate,
scare people who might be listening.
Katie, if you have 3.5 billion laying around, let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking you where you get it.
Get it from everywhere, but you get it ultimately you get it from making the right decisions. I can say this. One of the things that's been really important to me is earning the trust and the respect of the airlines. So if the airlines know we're spending appropriately, they're going to be much more interested in supporting us and our mission. And when they know, for instance, we've been trying to drive down the costs. We have reduced some staffing. We've done some things where we're being much more efficient. That plays well with the airlines because it saves them money. And ultimately, that's what we need to do to find a way to pay for this thing.
And following up on that, if and when you get to the places where you can get an architect, get some engineers in here, do you want to stay local for that? Because it seems to me that maybe someone locally who has a vested interest in having a vibrant airport in their own community might be a little bit more cooperative with you money wise. Is that something you're thinking about?
We always think about that, Colleen. We always want to shop local. So we have a very aggressive program to work with local businesses. We have a very aggressive business to hire small and minority businesses. In fact, one of our people, Carmen Bailey, was just recognized for her work on diverse businesses. Yes, so it's a combination. So we don't know what that would look like, but first choice always is to shop local. We want to get the business people because it pays dividends in so many different ways. It pays dividends because people feel proud about participating. It pays dividends because people are getting paid. It pays dividends because those people are getting paid go out and spend their money in Columbus. So yes, we like local. I mean, this is a big job when you're talking about $1.5 billion deal. Um, Expertise is all over the world. Different companies have different kinds of expertise for airport terminals, but I can assure you that we would have plenty of local participation in an airport terminal.
Before I let you go, the one thing that we haven't touched on is something that we used to talk about all the time when we talked about airports. We always talked about safety. How secure is it to fly? Are there any threats in the airwaves? Because of COVID, it seems as if we aren't even focusing on that anymore. But I do want to ask you, how secure is it to fly these days, safety wise, as well as, terrorist threats that people associate when they think of is with airlines?
So I would say that you may not be talking about that, but we're talking about it every single day. So FAA, it's priority one. The first question on any test for being an airport executive is what's the most important thing, and it's safety. So we talk about it every single day. We think it's very safe to fly. Um, well, we know it's very safe. The records have proven it out. Unfortunately, we did have one death in the last 8 or 10 years on a commercial aircraft, but it's very, very safe. Um, I think that we have a team. So when I tell you we have a team that was working on the COVID response long before others, it's because we have folks here that focus on specific things that they have to do. So when it snows, yes, we have to clear the runway. So we're out inspecting the runways on a daily basis. I mean, safety is our most important thing because if you lose the public's confidence on a safety situation, it's going to be very hard to earn it back. I think that, I say I think, but I know, it's very safe to fly in the US.
We're almost out of time, but before I let you go, now that you've been in Columbus here for a little while and in this position for a little while, what do you want us to know about you and the Columbus Airport, the Metropolitan Airport system?
So the thing I want you to know about the Columbus system is that we have a staff of some 350 people that are committed to serving you and the community, and they take it very seriously. Our team is unmatched. They work hard. They'll be here when you need them. The runways are cleared. The cargo gets loaded. The terminals get cleaned. So the message is that we run a very safe and clean and airport that's focused on the passenger experience. What I'd like them to know about me is how grateful I am to have been accepted. You talk about Don DePiro from the chamber. He took me under his wing, but there are many, many other folks who just spent time with me, reached out to me. the now governor, wasn't the governor at the time, sent me a note when I was selected for this position. I received so much kindness from this community that I can never repay it. So all I can say is that my gratitude is enormous, and I'll be forever grateful until the day I die. So I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we are grateful for the job that you were doing, and also grateful that you took time to talk to us for this series. And it's been very informative. And we wish you great success, and we certainly want prosperity for that airport. So
Thank
thanks
you.
again for being with us, Joe.
Thank you, Colleen, and our team. I can assure you that this airport is in good hands.
Hello, everyone. I'm Don DePiero, your president and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for attending our final CEO Insights for 2020. And aren't we all happy that this year is coming to an end? First, I'd like to thank Joe Nardoni, our featured guest, and the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. Joe, we all very much look forward to the day when we fill those planes again and we're all traveling and enjoying ourselves. Also, we need to thank our great sponsors, especially our title sponsors, the law firm of Barnes and Thornburg, the accounting and consulting firm Plant Moran, and First Merchants Bank. Thank you all so very much for making CEO Insights a reality, and we really look forward to your support and participation in the coming year. Also, thank all of you. Thank you so much for attending, and we really appreciate it, and we hope you're going to continue to attend more and more events. In fact, you can all go visit columbus.org/events. That's columbus.org/events, and look at all of our upcoming Chamber of Commerce events, including our Columbus Region Logistics Council Holiday Mixer. Our Columbus Region Logistics Council Holiday Mixer. That's on Thursday, December 10th at 5:30. Come join us for some holiday cheer, won't you? And a very special thank you to Colleen Marshall and NBC4. Colleen, we've been friends for over 20 years. Thank you so much for what you do for our chamber, for what you do for our community at large. You are Columbus's premier broadcast journalist. We can't thank you enough. Hey, have a great day. Have a great week. We look forward to seeing you again next year and putting 2020 behind us. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a great, safe, and joyous holiday season. Take good care. Bye-bye now.